All right, let's look at resumes here, but majority of them are absolutely piece of crap. Yeah, so I have a lot of resumes. Let's see. All right, first word of advice. These are all the people that have applied for jobs and such, full stack web developer role. What do you see here? Uh, you see some docx files, some PDF files, some doc files. So generally, what do you guys think? What should be the ideal format?
So doc file is a big no. Like PDF is the way to go.
Okay, anybody else?
Same PDF.
PDF.
Why?
PDF.
Because doc file can be edited by anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. Anything else?
And the view doesn't change for the PDF format. I
Hmm.
mean, if the for a doc file, the view could get damaged when using another view.
Right. So those are very two important ones. Second one is even more important than the first one, right? Like if I send my resume to somebody and they modify it, right? I'm that don't really care, right? Like why does it matter? It's not like they're gonna apply for 500 jobs with the wrong resume, right? They're gonna apply for me if and modify it accidentally. So that first one is not that big a concern, but second one definitely is, right? So always have a PDF, no matter what, all right? The other thing that you guys might not notice is, so I am on Linux, all right? I don't have Word, I don't have Windows. So trying to open docx, doc, all of these different formats becomes an issue because half of the time I'm not even able to open them. And trust me, irrespective of how urgent requirement it might be, and you might be a great fit, if your resume doesn't open on my system, right? It's not going to do me any good. So PDF is a universal format. Always use PDF. End of story, right? Like no confusion, no doubts. And let's just pick up a random resume. Okay. So can you guys see this Rohit Shaurya resume? You guys can see?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Cool. So let's see. Okay, so he's a graduate from Delhi Technological University, graduated this year, software engineering, BTech, CBSE. All right. So first things first, you don't really need objective. Okay, objectives are a big no-no. There's no point really, right? You're putting in a resume. It's very obvious that you're applying for a job or a position or something, right? Like I don't care. Your objective should be to get a job and learn and grow. That's everybody's objective, right? So do not waste uh, valuable real estate on your resume in an objective. Okay, that's just not at all needed. Okay, education. Actually, even let's go at the top. So why is this italics? I have no idea. Right? It's just making me hard to read what his email ID is. Right? I can't even read and understand. Right? The name, the phone number is nice and well spread out, but this is so squished together. Why can't everything be just consistent font? So don't make samne wala other person's life difficult in trying to connect with you, in trying to reach out to you. Okay. And especially considering that this is a PDF, right? Majority people might be trying to copy paste this information or write it manually on another piece of information. Even though as much as we'd like to think that companies are technology oriented and shit happens everything in an automated way, that's not the reality. A lot of things still happen manually, right? So you want to make sure that you're creating resumes first for humans and then for machines. So, and not the other way around. Okay. So make this information absolutely nice and readable, right? Right now, this thing is absolutely not readable. Right. Here, right, like they've tried to create a tabular format of, uh, tabular format of your this thing, whatever this is, right, your educational thing, right? Why is there a line here and not between here, right? Like why is CBSE, class 12th clubbed with BTech in the same box versus this is in a separate box? Right, it doesn't make sense. It just throws my entire balance off when I'm trying to understand and parse this information. So if you want to have a tabular format, have it consistent across the board, right? Have a horizontal line with everything, right? Why just one place, or just don't have it anywhere? So maintain consistency, right? uh,
I
Here,
shared it.
okay, once we review this, we'll pick that up. So once you have, this right section, if you look at it, right, how many pages? Okay, this is one page. So when you look at this right section, right, this GPA is the only thing that's in the second line, right? This was 6.5 GPA. Why can't this be just 8.6 GPA? Why does it have to be 8.6 over 10, right? So nitpick on these minor things that are going to make your entire resume consistent. Okay, so why does this need to be in two lines? It wasted so much space, right? Even if for some reason you had to write 8.6 over 10 as your GPA, right, still you could make the width of this last column much more bigger because there's so much space empty here, right? You could just make this entire column shift here and the entire thing would fit in one line, and your entire, three columns will remain three columns. Okay, so nitpick on these things because resumes are very important for somebody to scan through them quickly and understand what you're all about. Okay, so make sure that you are highlighting the right things and make sure that you are, putting them in the right place, and you're using the real estate on your page very wisely. Okay, so first of all, your resume should not be more than one pages. You're not Bill Gates. You're not Steve Jobs. Your resume, you don't have 15 years of work experience. Till the time you reach 15 years of work experience, just put it in your head that your resume does not need to be more than one page. Okay, my resume is not more than one page, so you don't need a resume that's more than one page. Okay, so this at least that was good, but I've seen people whose resumes are 7 pages long, and I don't know what are they thinking. So what's the whole role of an resume? What do you think is the resume's job? Not your job. What's the job of your resume? What's the purpose that it should fulfill? What do you think?
To tell the recruiter in one look, like if the person would be a suitable fit or not.
Okay. Anything else?
To reflect your image,
Is like what?
to reflect your image to the HR.
Okay. A reflective image. Okay. Anything else? All right. So, what's a typical? What are the typical steps in a job application process? The first is you apply for a job, you submit a resume, then you get called for maybe a phone screening, right? And then you get called for a actual interview or an online interview, then maybe another interview, and then maybe an actual, non-technical interview with a co-founder or somebody senior in the hierarchy, and then a final job offer. Okay, every step is a ladder. Okay, this entire thing is a ladder. Now, when you are at the first step and you're submitting your resume's job is not to get you a bloody job offer. The resume's job is to get you into the next step. The next step's job is to get you into the next step. The next step job is to get you into that next step. Okay, so do not think that everything is about getting the job offer in hand, right? It's not that. The first step is to get you a phone call. So all your resume is supposed to, when I say phone call generically, but if you're applying online, to get shortlisted. If you're applying in person, to get a in-person call or to get an email response, whatever it is, to schedule a call. The point is, it's a starter, right? Its only job is to start the application process, right? They'll not know who you are, what you stand for, what your ideologies are, what your philosophies are, what you like, what you want to do, how you want to progress in your career. They'll not know all those things just based on your resume. And that's why there are 4 other interviews, right? So your resume's job is to highlight the skills that are relevant for this job that you're applying for, so that you get the first call. And that's all the resume's job is, right? Your CTC that gets offered, whether you get a job or not, is not dependent on your resume. Okay, so do not try to cram everything inside the resume. Okay, only highlight things that are very appropriate and very important for the particular role and the position you're applying for. Okay, so I'll give a good example here. So Setu, you've worked for 3 years in C++ for game development, right? Now you're working in C# and Unity and JavaScript, right? Tomorrow, if you see a job opportunity for a game developer and say they are working in Unreal, right? It's completely disconnected from what you've done, right?
Yeah.
And now you have two, opportunities to highlight in your professional section, right? You have one, which is your previous job, which was C++ in Focus 2D, and now you have your Unity segment of projects that you have worked on here. Which of these two will you highlight?
Of course, C++.
Right. So you want to make sure that even though this one comes chronologically first, because this is more recent, this one will go down in priority. You want them to look at that you spent 3+ years working on C++ and game development, even though it's a different tool set. So every time you're submitting a job or every time you're submitting a resume to somebody for a specific job, you want to cut that number of applications down to say 20-25 applications, right? But you want high conversion, right? You don't want to have that spray and pray mentality. So you'll almost make some customizations or the other in every resume that you put in. Okay, so if it's a C++ Unreal job, I'll move my C++ section up. I'll reverse the order of priority. Okay, if it's a Unity job, I'll highlight my Unity projects up, right? And add more exposure and depth into them versus the C++ ones. Okay, even though C++ ones, I'd spend 6 times more the amount of time and effort into those projects, but these are more recent ones, these are more relevant ones, so I'm going to highlight those. Okay, again, same, right? Like if you're highlighting something like languages that you've worked on, right, and you're applying for C++, C++1 should be the first one that stands up here, right? And then C#, and then HTML, and then whatever, right? But if you're applying for something that is Unity specific, then it should be C#, .NET, Mono, or whatever related, JSON, whatever. So the priority order will shift, and accordingly you'll keep juggling things around. Okay. All right. So other few things that here, when I look quickly, is like if you look from here, from the start of this academic section all the way down, right, you can see the spacing is so inconsistent, right? Positions of responsibility, right? Yeah, like you're a student, you just graduated. Positions of responsibility, right? I'm not going to hand you the responsibility of a new team entirely in my company. So why do I care about your positions of responsibility? If I'm hiring you as a technical software engineer that you graduated in, right, show me that you're a good engineer first. I'll worry about whether you can take up the position of responsibility or not, right? Like this entire section is absolutely waste, right? They could have highlighted some projects, something in more detail. A simple tune converter, Python GUI, okay, great. This is something that I can build on a Saturday in 2 hours after a drunk party, because there are ample YouTube tutorials about it and I don't need to do anything. I just need to follow the steps that they're doing. So why does this thing really, should impress me? Parking management system. Since 1980s, every BTech guy has been making parking management, hotel management, library management system. Doesn't impress me at all. So have things that are meaningful, have things that are, if this was actually a genuine project, have more details under it. Point me to its GitHub location, point me to a YouTube video showing, what this is, right? But right now, this is absolutely very unappealing, right? So have things that are relevant, and I'll go more into more details. Again, declaration, absolutely piece of crap. Interest and hobbies, absolutely piece of crap. Okay, you don't need any of this stuff. When I'm interviewing you, till in the initial phases, I only care about whether you are a good fit in terms of your skill set. Okay, once you have gotten a tick that all right, this person's skill set is fine, then I'm going to worry about whether you're a good fit or culturally or not. I'm not going to do it in reverse. I'm not going to worry about your culture fit if you're not even good in technical skill set, right? And I'm right now just talking about technical because you're applying for a technical role, right? I'm not talking about non-technical profiles here. So here, watching TV series was like, are you going to come into the office and binge watch Netflix? No, right? So why do I care, right? So don't put these interests and hobbies, like that stuff doesn't matter. Declaration, I declare. Okay, yeah. So, are you like a judge in Supreme Court? Right? Like, it's the most obvious shit that people get it wrong, right? Like, declaration and such is absolutely not important, right? Just because, if you don't have a declaration, does that mean the information that you have provided above is false? Or does that mean that, if you have a declaration that, that you're vouching that the entire thing is correct? It doesn't make any sense. So have meaningful information, have precise information, things that are relevant to what you're applying for. All right. And talk. Yeah, so this is again 2-page, probably not needed. Definitely not needed, I would rather say. Too much wasted space. It just makes me want to scroll. If I can read it in one glance, I'll be more inclined to, okay, I read it, I understand that this person is, here also you can see there's no degree as 3-year BTech degree, right? So why is this 2017 to 2020, right? Seems most obvious mistake, right? So if you can't fix your resume correctly, then how would I expect you to work correctly as well? So 2013 to 16, then this should be 16 to 20, right? So you can't even type your those level things correctly, then you don't want to hire this person ever. So just don't make those kind of obvious mistakes. Let's look at Shubham's resume. I don't think I have my resume and let me see. Fish. My Chrome crashed. Oh well. Give me 1 sec. All right. Shivam, okay, yeah, I remember now. I've seen this resume before, or at least a similar version of it. So it looks very artistic, but it looks very unprofessional. Okay. So if you were an artist, I would definitely, encourage that it's great, but you're unfortunately you're not an artist, you're a developer. So you'll pretty much have to start over all again. So the you can go a little bit more creative, but more or less if you're applying for so here's how to think about it, right? So there are two categories of people. One category who a creative resume, something that looks different and catches their eye, versus a plain boring resume. They might like it and they might call you because of this. And then there's the other category that will get put off, saying, "Hey, okay, this looks too fancy. It's not really, appropriate for a professional thing." And they'll be like, "All right, this looks too sort of flashy. So, I'm going to be completely shut off and not even ask this person for an interview." Okay. So those are those two categories. Now, the only decision you need to make, which category do you think more people fall in, right? And it's the second one, I can tell you that, right? So majority people, at least in our country, unfortunately, aren't creative, right? Aren't, fancy. So they'll get put off from looking at a creative resume, and especially if it's not for a creative profile. Even though you can argue game development is a lot of creative work, but unfortunately the HRs and the hiring managers aren't very creative people, right? So they're not gonna care for your creativity here. Okay. um, Few things, right? Like, it takes me a while to figure out your education here. You want to probably early on in your career, that needs to be slightly higher up section. um, what else? Generally, just, things need to be in sort of chronological order, or rather reverse chronological order, where recent things are always on top, older things are at the bottom, right? So your BTech would be at the highest thing, because I'm going to read your resume from top to bottom, right? I don't care what your marks were, in 10th standard, because that's not going to define who you are as a developer for the next 2 years, right? But I care about, where did you graduate from, when did you graduate. That level of information is important for me. So have this information up and have the other information down, right? Everything is in, almost the entire thing is in all caps. When you say something is in all caps, you're trying to grab attention to it, and it's like, uh, in typically online world and Western worlds, all caps usually means shouting, right? So, if, I'm reading this in my head, I'm reading it as, I am presently am an enthusiastic student. So there's English typo, right? Grammatical issues. So definitely make sure, there are no any issues like that. Uh, so we always, like, is this like a group resume, or are you talking about yourself, or some, higher power, or what, right? So let's make it that it's always, uh, you know, uh, we're not making very sort of basic grammatical mistakes, right? Like, so use Grammarly, use other, write it inside your Google Docs, etc., and those alone will highlight a lot of grammatical issues, etc., right? But so if I'm reading it in my mind, right? Here is how I'm reading it. I am presently I'm an enthusiastic student believing in blah 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 blah, blah projects and internships, or a YouTube channel named blah blah, right? So it's like I'm almost shouting, right? So all caps is usually only reserved for headings and subheadings. So never do that inside the text, because you only want to grab users' attention or the viewer's attention at certain points, and not at everything, right? Now this entire thing on the right, especially, right, the blue one, it's so bold and so, capped out, that now everything looks exactly the same, right? So you're losing the purpose of making something bold. You're losing the purpose of making something highlighted, etc. Okay. The layout, while, it might be sort of interesting, but, saying Facebook and social, your handle, even if, I ignore that you mentioned Facebook and not LinkedIn, but my point being is, like, am I going to search for Shubham Behel and, try to find out of the 5,000 names that probably show up? Probably no, right? So even if you want people to connect over any network, uh, always have hyperlinks. Okay. So this is sort of very unorthodox looking resume as well, right? So let me see if there's anything else. Again, all of these should be proper hyperlinks, and they don't even need to be here, right? You could have made the word GitHub a hyperlink, and this entire thing should be hidden, right? So now you're saving up on your real estate. Okay. Yeah, I can see you've made this a hyperlink, which is great, but you should have made just this a hyperlink instead of having this entire text here, right? I'm not going to remember that it's github.com/widget101, right? I'm never going to remember that. And I don't need to remember that, right? Why do I need to remember, right? So I don't even need to look at it. I just need to know that there is a hyperlink here and I'll click on it. I'll go to your GitHub profile. All right. Cool. Let me look at Vinay's resume. All right, yeah, this is fine. Let me show this one to you guys. Oh, I think I downloaded it. Okay, so you guys should normally follow a very similar kind of a format, and that just works. Like I was saying, as you can see, when I'm scrolling from the top, right, I know this person's name is Vinay. I know their contact information is loud and clear. And then if I'm interested, I know all their handles, right? Including, if you look at it, email, right? Half of you don't have a very good sounding email just because your name is not available on email anymore. So if you have your email IDs as xxxrishabh.smartypants@gmail.com, please do not send that to recruiters. Okay. Create a new professional email ID, something that sounds appropriate and reasonable, and use that. That's easy to remember. But even if it's not easy to remember, have it something more meaningful. So here it says Vinay Kashyap 57@gmail.com. I don't care what 57 is, but at least it's not absurd or obscene like smartcoder@007.com, right? Like, we're not kids anymore. Let's make our handles also reflect the same thing. Okay. So if you have a handle across the same, across all the networks the same, great. Otherwise, have different ones, that's totally fine. But, now I know that if I'm interested as an engineering manager, I want to know what this person is on GitHub, I can just directly jump there and see their GitHub, right? I can see their contributions, I can see everything there, and I don't need to remember that they have a GitHub ID or handle this or that, whatever it is, right? Similarly, I can just directly jump to their LinkedIn and done, right? So everything is updated and everything is freely available. Just make sure that you're connecting all your public profiles and informations correctly. Okay. And for email, you should have this, if you look at the bottom left corner of the screen, right? Mail to colon, then the email ID. This will naturally pop up there, whatever is their mail client, and put it in the to. So don't even just have the email ID there, but have the mail to tag. So now, I can directly send them an email. So make other person's life as easy as you can, if they want to reach out. All right. So now if you notice, like Vinay has highlighted his skills at the very top, right? And this is intentional, right? Because the highest priority thing that people, when they're looking for, is skills. So you see, no bullshit objectives, no nothing of that crap, directly skills. All right. When you're looking at a resume, that's all I care about, what this person knows and what this person can do, right? So here, languages, one thing I recommend is that if you have different level of comfort with different languages, right, you should add this thing with the brackets, right? So JavaScript, yes, I know, but if you just write JavaScript, everybody assumes that, all right, you're great at JavaScript. Let me ask you all the deep level questions around JavaScript. And then in the interview, you'll be like, oh, but I just did this. And, while you might be true, but it will come out that, hey, you put in false information on your resume. So here, it's very easy to highlight that, hey, I'm just a beginner in JavaScript. I just recently started learning it, right? But on C#, I am much more strong, right? I'm not an expert yet, but I'm an intermediate person in C# because I've, worked with it much longer. And then game engine, source control. If you have done, Vinay was specifically more focused on AR/VR, so he had that. And then, design patterns, which I can bet you will not even find on some of very senior level people's resumes as well, right? So these are some kind of design patterns that you might want to highlight as well. Okay, things that you are comfortable talking about, because tomorrow you show up for an interview and somebody asks what's a factory pattern or what's a singleton pattern and you're not able to explain, that again shows up wrong, right? So make sure you're highlighting the design patterns that you are comfortable, very, very much comfortable talking about. After that, a simple, nice, clean, minimalistic education section, year of passing, everything, CBSE board, etc., etc., college institute name. Again, year of passing and percentage CGPA could be compressed further down so that these things are also in a single line and not using so much space. And the same goes for here. So it could be a little bit better. Ideally, you want to have all of these information in a single line, right? Like this is taking two lines, this is taking two lines. This probably could not be condensed down, but you could say, just CBSE board, something that's was enough. So again, chronological order. So the most recent one at top, and then all the way down, right? Nice, simple, clean, right? I know what exactly it is, and it takes me less than 5 seconds through parse through this entire information that, all right, this person has 75% in BTech, so seems like decent studious kind of a fellow. All right, next. All right, so here, this was his recent company, clearly highlighted all the games. So, title, nice and bold, and this is the only thing in bold, right? So, only thing in bold, only thing in bold, only thing in bold, right? After that, even the company names are not in bold, right? And if you look, the pattern is the same, right? So, your title, because that's what I care about. I just want to know which company and what was the duration, right? The duration is not aligned correctly here, but in the others, you can see the duration is completely aligned correctly from, the right edge of the screen, right? So alignment, orientation, those kind of things also matter, right? Uh, yeah, he hasn't made it into two pagers, which was not needed. But I guess he was just getting lazy. So, here he has added different games that he's worked on, but these are probably smaller games. And it's clearly highlighted that, all right, fixing bugs for this particular thing and receiving requests from server. That means it didn't really work on anything gameplay related. But here it's highlighted that I was responsible for the whole programming aspects of the game, right? Everything. And that includes these external components as well, right? But when you're saying whole programming aspects, you have this half a line of space still empty. Why don't you use that and highlight some key things like UI managers, or the UI subsystem, or the meta game scoring system, or whatever it is, right? Use these real estate as wisely as possible. Okay, and then things that are publicly available, you can highlight them through links. So this Quizmaster link goes to a Play Store, but remember, 99% nobody's going to go to the Play Store to check out your game. Okay, yes, you did a great job publishing it, kudos, but I'm not going to check it out. Okay, so instead what you should do is, so like the Hitman Go game, right? This one is going to his GitHub. Okay, so you could, to highlight that, this is a GitHub link versus a Play Store link, you can actually put it inside brackets in front, right? So imagine Champions of Arena, brackets, GitHub in all small, but that's a link. So now I know that you have given me access to check out this Champions of Arena's source code because it's available on GitHub, right? Versus in another project, it might be a proprietary project that you're working on and you do not have access to publish the GitHub, source. Then you can probably point me to a YouTube trailer or something like that, right? So something small and precise that gives me exactly, all right. So for Bowmasters, I don't know whether this link is an actual GitHub till I click on it or till I hover on it, right? And also here, I can see that this is going to a drive. I don't know what this is, but probably it's a video. So it would have been better as Rummy and then bracket trailer, and this would go to a trailer, right? So I know before I click, I have the right expectations, right? I click these two links and these go to GitHub, and I click this link assuming that I'm going to check out Rumby's source code, but I come back to and see, okay, there's it's not source code, but it's the gameplay video, right? And I'm not interested in gameplay videos. I'm only interested in checking out, the actual code itself, right? So save me time and don't disappoint. And set up the right expectations. So a better version of this would have been Hitman Go clone brackets GitHub, and that GitHub word is a hyperlink that takes me to the GitHub source code. And if you want to say GitHub and video, you can have those two back to back as brackets. But then I would argue that you can embed the video on your GitHub page. So if anybody's interested, they can actually go to the GitHub page and start watching the video there as well. Thank you. And here you can see, instead of saying what are your interests, I like dancing in the rain and eating samosas, he's actually highlighted certain side projects and hobby projects. So if you have those, you can do that. He did some internship, he has highlighted that and had meaningful information about what this internship was and what he was working on it. Okay, so that level of information is important. Make a co-curricular activity is fine. Usually you can avoid. So you can just cut this entire thing off. You don't even need references. Okay, most of the parent people don't ask for references. If they need a reference, they'll ask for you anyway. They'll ask anyways that, hey, can you share some more references? That's it. Okay, so now just look at this first one page. It's absolutely plain, simple, clear. Looking at this entire section tells me, all right, this person has done some work, right? It's not just, he just graduated with a BTech degree, but he has actually done some work. Be it hobby projects, be it whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter, right? Have the title work experience. So it highlights that, you're talking about your work experience. Now, when he goes to his next two jobs, eventually this thing will get cut off from this section, right? When he adds another thing at the top, eventually this thing will get cut off from this section when he adds another thing at the top, right? Over the course of next 3 to 5 years. So the things at the bottom will keep drifting off your resume, but things at the top will keep getting added up. Eventually this thing will get cut down to even 2 lines of code, or 2 lines, that's it. So you don't need, because this is a more recent project, so he's added more details, but eventually it will come down. Okay, so it's always about highlighting what your core strengths are, and what you want to achieve, and what in your past seems relevant for this particular thing. Okay, so no unnecessary hyperlinks, no unnecessary, bolding of things, highlighting of things, everything nice, clean, and simple. Cool. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Yeah. Just one thing. When adding our experience with Outscal, do we add it as a work experience or a course kind of thing?
See, nobody gives a shit. Okay. Frankly, they care about what were you up to and what were you doing. All right. So you can add it under your work experience, and that's totally fine. Okay. So they'll ask you, what was this project, right? What were you doing at Outscale, right? And then during that conversation, you can tell them, right? But if you've already started that conversation, that means your resume's job is over. Your resume did its job, whatever it was supposed to do. You're now in the gate, and now you're actually talking to a person, right? So by that time, your resume's job is already over, and that time you can tell them, hey, this is an online thing where we are learning how to, build more industry level stuff, blah, 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 blah. These are the kind of fancy projects that I did. The entire code is available open source. And, the more in depth you start talking about technology, they'll be like, all right, this person is not bullshitting, right? He knows his stuff, right? He's saying he did this particular project, he knows it in and out, and he can talk intelligently about it, right? That's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether you highlight it. You can create a separate section, but it's just going to be a waste of time and effort and waste of space on your one-page resume. Okay, so don't worry too much about it. Just put it in like Again, do it again and based on your priority and preference. So because especially for you, you have 3 years experience, right? So your resume might look something different. Okay, let me check. So
But isn't there a way to keep it creative as well?
sorry, isn't there what? Wait, Shubham, you there? Can you repeat?
Sir, is there a way to keep your resume creative? Because I hate those boring resumes.
Do you want a creative resume or do you want a creative job?
Sir, both.
No, so you have to pick one.
Sir, then creative job.
Yeah, so let the resume be boring. Resume's job is only to work one day inside entire, for your next 2 3 years. It needs to only do its magic once. Okay, so let it be boring and let it do its job so that you get a nice, creative job, because you don't know samne who's the HR, what kind of thing they're looking for, etc. Right? If it makes it difficult for them to interpret your information, right, they're not gonna spend time on that. Okay, so keep it boring and simple, and more importantly, easy to understand and parse.
Sir, I got an idea. Like create two resumes, link each of them like to the other one, send the boring one, then give a hyperlink like saying creative resume and shit like that.
So you saw in the recommendation that I was showing you, right?
Keep it simple.
Yeah. So I am a big, proponent of this. And anytime somebody comes up with this is my response to you right now, right? Like, yes, you can come up with a creative idea or a creative solution to, the problem that you just described. But does it really need creativity? Probably no, right? So some things are better off left the way they are and keep them as simple as possible. So don't overcomplicate things, keep them as simple. Um,
Under
and let me see if I have his resume. Wait, this is November. He's old. Yeah, second page is completely empty, but I think this is the old one before he applied for the job. Um, yeah, I'm trying to see because Swapnil was exactly like your case, Situ, where he had 3 4 years working experience before, and I can't find his resume right now. But the point is that if you're applying for something Unity based, keep your Unity stuff at the top in the career section. Otherwise, keep the C++ stuff in the top. Okay,
Yeah.
so just have it in a chronological manner.
Yeah.
All right, good. So your target is that on next Tuesday before the class, you guys should have your resumes and LinkedIn profile up and ready. And we'll do a quick review. And yeah, so use this as sort of a reference, except it should be single page. Um, every time you're applying for a new role, if you're making any customizations, have a dedicated section inside your Google Drive where you are backing up that resume. So tomorrow, when you show up at that company, you know which one are the things that you highlighted at the top and which ones were at the bottom. So let me see. Uh, yeah, so this is my personal drive, and okay, I don't have anything recent, but initially, I was maintaining, uh, month wise, and inside the month, uh, individual folders for each company that I had customized to, right? But then I'm not going to job posts and job boards and applying randomly. I'm actually spending time in researching every company before itself when I apply to them. And chances are that you don't want to apply to random job openings. You first want to figure out whether this is a good company for you to work at or not, and whether they have the right kind of openings or not as well, right? So let me see here. Okay, so yeah, this is last year's almost now. So here you can see again everything at the top. So I have a nice and clean email ID, mayankgrover@gmail.com, which is my full name, right? So I can highlight it like this, but then LinkedIn is as simple and plain as possible, right? Like you don't need to put a full link for LinkedIn, and you can have the email ID. If your email ID is not something very easily readable or understandable or rememberable, then you can hide it as well. Okay. Skills and programming sections nicely organized in two columns, and then I have a bunch of uh, job segments. Everything is exactly the same. There's a title, company, and then the thing on the right, the duration, right? So that's the same paradigm that's followed from top to bottom. Here, this one I've highlighted the Android APK link and the iOS, the store link rather, not the APK link, and what I was doing at each of these places, right? And then there are certain academic projects at the end, and that's it, right? There's none of that extra bullshit crap. At the very top, for me at that time, the academic sort of two colleges on my resume are a lot of brag-worthy stuff. That's why if you notice, right, Carnegie Mellon was even highlighted. I think this is the version of resume that I was using when I was in US. I haven't changed the version since then. So, this was, as you can see, this is the only exception here that's broken the consistency, right? There's nothing bolded here, but there is this thing that's bolded here because in US, the name of the university has a lot of value, right? Oh shit, this person is from Carnegie,
Something like IIT.
yeah, exactly. So, it's the IITs of the world kind of thing. So, so this kind of, that's why I had broken that rule that everything should be consistent, but this was kind of folded out. Okay. But rest everything else you can see majority of the stuff is pretty low key. um, this was 2 years and it has more content, but this was 3 years and this has less content because it's older, right? In chronology and not gaming related, right? This was hardly 6 months, but it's gaming related and that too at a high profile company, right? So it has more value versus this 3 years of work. Okay. So depending on where you're applying and what you're doing, you want to highlight those things as well, right? Um, and then some academic projects, etc., things like that on the side that you can highlight. But you can see no declaration bullshit, no agenda, anything on that lines, but nice, clean, plain, and simple. I would argue there's a little bit more boldness happening here, but it's still manageable, right? Like still can see that every section has some spacing, has some differentiation, etc., etc. Here I've clearly bolded out. All right, 8 games I've launched so far. Whenever this last edit was done, games launched 8. Right, it's nice and highlighted clearly. All right, I know how to not just make games but actually launch them as well. Right, so that kind of gives an extra flavor to a specific job opportunity. So those are the kind of things that you should focus on highlighting when you're applying for anything. Okay. Cool. Any questions? All right. So what I'll do is I'll upload the resumes here. Let me see. I'll upload Vinay's resume, so that's even a more recent slash better example, much cleaner rather than mine. I haven't updated this in a long while actually. So even if you see my resume from 2010, it probably looks similar because the design and the template I never hadn't gotten around to updating it. So I'll share Vinay's resume. Use that as a template and try to remodel your entire resume from scratch uh, to work on this kind of a design. Of course, you can use a little bit of different colors here and there and things like that, but overall, the style and the pattern should remain consistent and definitely within one page only. All right, no two pages. And let's get this wrapped up by before Tuesday itself, so that on Tuesday we can do one round of review as well. And if there's any feedback, I'll let you guys know. All right?
Yeah.
Good. All right. All right. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you guys doing any kind of networking and such on LinkedIn? No is also a valid answer.
No, sir.
Okay. So if there is a question, answer. Yes or no doesn't matter, but please answer. Um, okay. So, start actively networking with people, adding people who are in the industry, like I said. So keep slowly building your network. Over time, it will add, compound. The interest that you get on top of that will compound. So start building and focusing your professional network as well. Um, One thing I wanted to highlight, so if you look at Vinay's LinkedIn, it's very neatly organized. So, here I can see, how his contributions and stacked up over different things. He has written some small pieces that he has published as just itself, just as single pieces of code or small utilities, right? And he has published it and has pinned it at the top as well. So you can see like these guys were working on the Hitman Go project. Uh, but the original repository is under Outscal name, but then he forked it, probably made some customizations, etc. if he wanted, and has pinned it to the top of his as well, right? So generally, for the team projects, that's what I'd expect you guys to do as well. So fork the final version. If you have something else that you want to work on, you can just directly work on in your own space and eventually keep improving it the way you want it. And here you can see he has like the link for the trailer videos and the APK, etc. as well. So those links are easily available. And then you have your, design patterns and sort of a nice little readme file. And, Unity async await loading or whatever this is, he's pinned it at the top as well. So this shows me that, all right, he knows what asynchronous programming is and how to actually cancel a task and things like that, right? So I can quickly look at this person and say like, all right, he's a developer. I can tell you that, right? Without even a single phone call or an interview or any task, I can just look at some snippet of code and be like, all right, I know that this person knows how to code. Okay, so GitHub and LinkedIn are going to be two more important pieces. Rather, they're more important than your resume as well. Okay, so resume is just a thing to get you into the door, but these are the ones that will get you the actual job. Okay, so make your profile nice and clean. Have the right repositories. Have the repositories nicely. Have basic information at the top of the repository what this particular thing does, etc. And have all the core pieces of information available there. Okay. Uh, don't worry if it's time pass repository or test repository or whatever, it's fine. You can highlight that as well, that this is a testing repository. I was just testing out blah, 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 or, experimenting with Flutter or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. It just shows that, you're enthusiastic about tech, and that's always better than, not having anything. Okay. Cool. So generally just focus on improving all sort of your presence online, and first task is to improve your LinkedIn and resumes. So do that.
We are also building a dedicated community of passionate game developers, web developers on Discord. During this course, if you face any issues while building your projects, Please feel free to ask relevant questions on our Discord community, and other students who have already done this course will be there to help you out. The link to join our Discord community will be in the description below. We usually publish a lot of information such as interview questions, hiring patterns, what's the latest and the greatest happening in tech industry, both in gaming and web technologies. In order to stay up to date on relevant information, please follow us on our social media channels, link below.